Good morning, everyone. If today you hear his voice, harden not your hearts. If you hear his voice, if you hear his voice, harden not your hearts. You know, as a little bit of an aside to the homily, I want you to think about how you speak to yourself. Have you ever said, "Ooh, stupid. You were stupid. That's ridiculous. You're dumb. I can't believe you did this." Would you talk to another person that way? The way that you talk to yourself? And I'm preaching to me too. Yeah, God wouldn't want us to treat ourselves that way. I mean, he certainly wants us, to set a high standard and to strive towards it. But he also wants us to treat ourselves in the same way that we would treat him and our neighbor. So let's keep that in mind. Listen to the voice, your own voice. And how does it sound? And what is it saying? If today you hear his voice, harden not your hearts. How do I know what voice is God's? I mean, this is happening in my life, this is happening. A good way to be able to discern that is to take the 7 deadly sins and kind of place it up next to our situation and see, and then ask, Lord, what do you say about this? So, now, I don't know if you have memorized the 7 deadly sins. You should, because I gave a homily about 2 years ago on this, Gilligan's Island. Anybody, who has seen Gilligan's Island? Anyone? Okay, bunches of you, all right. If you remember, that was based on the 7 deadly sins, and each character represented one of them. So let's see how many of you remember. Gilligan, which 7 deadly sin did Gilligan represent? 2 years ago, swing and a miss. That's a strike one. All right. So I heard it over here, sloth. That is correct. Gilligan he represented sloth. I'm retired. And it's time for me to relax. It's time for me to just sleep in and just to kind of do whatever I want. Okay? Is there anything wrong with that? Not necessarily. Okay? Retirement is a beautiful time. Nevertheless, I should take my situation and put it against sloth and say, Lord, is this what you want me to do? Do you just want me to rest at this time? Or do you want me to take the time that I have and spend more time with my grandchildren? Or call my friends? Or volunteer? Okay? If today you hear his voice, well, you got to ask and open your heart. So Gilligan, Skipper, anybody? Skipper? What 7 deadly sin? He could really be one or the other. There's 2 of them that I would think, but specifically they named him on this one. Anyone? Gluttony is correct. Gluttony, Skipper represented gluttony. And so, is it all right for me to celebrate, to eat, to drink, to enjoy? Yes, it's fine. It's fine to do that. But at what level? And what frequency? And we take that situation and we place it against the 7 deadly sin and we say, Lord, and we listen to his voice. And he says, yes, you can celebrate, but at this level. And yes, you can celebrate, but at this frequency. And we hear his voice. All right, Gilligan. So we've got sloth, we've got gluttony, and then Mr. Howell. All right, yes, lovely. All right, what did Mr. Howell represent? Greed. Yes, greed is correct. And we have right here in the readings, I mean, from Ecclesiastes and Qoheleth, speaking about. Now, what the scriptures weren't saying was that life isn't worth living and nothing, there's no purpose in it and stuff like that. It kind of seems a bit dreary, but what it's saying is that we have to focus on the purpose of life. Ultimately, what matters to God is us. He wants us to discern what he's placed in our heart to give and to give it, because he knows that when we do that in an ordered fashion, in a disposition of love, of great sacrifice, many good sacrifices made will fill us, will increase our capacity to love. And greed can be one of the big ones, and that's why it's one of the 7 deadly sins that can draw us away. Is it okay that I put all of this money in my 401k, for me, 403b? Yes. He is not saying don't be prepared. But what he is saying is that what you have, what the biblical disposition of making sure that we're not greedy is? Tithing. Give 10% of what you receive. Is that gross or net? I would say net. All right. What you receive, give some to the church and give something else to the people that are truly in need. Do you realize that when the gospel says, you rich, he's talking to everyone in this room? I say this all the time. The World Health Organization. Who? Yes, who? World Health Organization has deemed that the poverty level for the world is $10 a day or less. 80% of the world lives on $10 a day or less. Did you realize that you were a part of the richest people in the world? Greed can really pull us in the wrong direction. So, is it okay to spend money? Yeah. Is it okay to make money? Yeah. Is it okay to make a lot of money? Yes. Whatever God is calling you to do, but then you have to go to him and say, am I getting greedy? So you place your situation and the 7 deadly sin, and then you listen for his voice. And when we do that, something within us begins, his spirit, by the way, impels us, consistent with reason and faith, impels us forward to act in love. Okay, so we have sloth, we have gluttony, we have greed. So Mrs. Howe, what did she represent? I'll just tell you, it's anger. I didn't really understand, why I didn't find her angry all the time, but nevertheless, that was her character, was based on anger. Anger, all right. Is it okay to be angry? Well, a lot of times when we experience anger, it's justified. But what do we do with that anger? And how is it expressed? Again, if we put our situation, this just anger, and then we put the 7 deadly sin of anger, now we can discern the level of anger and how it's expressed. Sloth, gluttony, greed, anger. Now we get to ginger. What's ginger? 1, 2, 3. No, vanity is not one of the 7 deadly sins, but it is a sin. So, but it's funny because I was at Sacred Heart and I was like, ginger is, and everybody said lust. It's like everybody, all right, you want to say that one with gusto? Yes, all right. May I look at another person and see God's beauty? Yes. Can I delight in that? Yes. But then, I can look at the situation and I can place lust up there and I try to listen to the voice of God. And then I say, well, gee, should I be watching that movie with this disposition? Now, a lot of times there's really good movies, but they put a gratuity in there and stuff. And you kind of have to push through that in a mature way. But then again, maybe you're watching the movie for that. Or your internet searches. Or just the thoughts in your head. Okay, so there's the moment where you turn, you look at you put your situation against it, and you listen to the voice of God. Okay? So we have sloth, we have gluttony, we have greed, we have anger, we have lust. Excuse me, Marianne. What did Marianne represent? Crickets. She did not represent crickets. No, she represented envy. Now, envy is not only jealousy, but it goes to a different level. And so this is moral theology. Jealousy is, I really want what you have, and I want it. I really want that. And then it goes to another level. Envy is, I really want that white jacket. Carolyn, give me, no, envy is not only do I want that jacket, I don't want you to have it. That's envy. Is it okay to look at someone and say, wow, that's a great gift. That's a great talent. That's a great resource. I kind of want that. That's fine. That might even be a motivation for you, for us, for me, to find something that God has placed in my heart and to give it. So it's okay, but jealousy just for jealousy itself, then what? Now we're falling into the sin. I want that and I don't want them to have it. I want that and I just sit there and I stew. Don't stew in the pew. Okay? Just you want to put your situation against the 7 deadly sin and ask God and hear his voice. Okay, the last one is the professor, and he's pride. Okay? So, I've really worked hard, and I'm joyful about what I have. Is that pride? Okay. I'm a self-made man. Okay. I'm a self-made woman. I did this. Okay, now we're into pride. See, because the reality is that did you bring yourself into being? Did I bring myself into being? No. Did I give myself the circumstances? Did I give myself the gifts and the talents that were cultivated through those circumstances? Did I give myself the grace to, cooperate with everything that I've had? Okay. Everything good is 100% God's, and it's partially ours to the point where we cooperated with God's grace and his gifts and the opportunity. And so we take ourselves and we say, well, I'm really joyful at what I have, and well, I'm going to just, is there pride there? And then I listen to his voice. It's all about what matters to God. And what matters to God? You and me, us. He wants our heart. He wants us to discern what He's placed in our heart to give, and to give it freely and joyfully. But it really helps if we're willing to hear His voice.